Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Dr. Keis, author of The Quest for Purpose and Deliberate Leadership. Ken, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Paul, for having me on.
Are you ready to get started?
I am ready to get started.
All right. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who's currently writing their book?
Well, one of the things, you got to stay true to yourself. I think authenticity is so important now, Paul. You know, trying to be somebody else's voice. The other thing is that when you're writing for the first time, figure out what works for you. I mean, when I wrote my first book, Why Aren't You More Like Me, and then Deliberate Leadership, and then The Quest for Purpose, I continued to evolve to know what works for me in terms of time of day of writing, how I want to set it up. Do I want to do the chapters in advance? Now, you have a system to help people, but I think people need to know their own energy and when they write best and how they write best, and just listen to your own sort of inner voice around that.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, and I think one of the biggest things, too, is just keeping it real. Always being honest, be authentic, because readers don't want to hear about all the great triumphs and how your life is perfect. They want to hear about the struggles and how you overcame them to be the person that you are today.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my mentors, Jim Rohn, that's what he always said. People want to hear your struggle. Then how did you overcome it?
Yeah.
And just to be real, because there's a lot of fraudulent, fake stuff out there these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree completely. And if people truly want to have that connection with the reader, then you've got to talk about the struggles, because if you don't, they're not going to relate to you and they're not going to connect with you.
Agreed.
Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Well, you know, it is a deep question, isn't it, Paul? I mean, it seems like a simple question. What direction do you want to go? If you want to be published by, one of the big publishing houses, then you need to have a lot of patience. You have to have submissions. I did some speaking for Mark Victor Hansen 20 years ago, and he said, well, how many submissions before Chicken Soup was accepted? And it was like something like 60 or 70 or 80. I can't remember. So there's that persistence side to it. And the other one is you're doing it for the first time. So you're learning, what about the editors and what about the cover design and where do you get it printed? And so you're just learning. So go and be mentored, people like yourself where people assist you and help you. And just learning the ropes and what's going on, and even things like multiples of pages when you print and how that reverse engineers to cost for inventory. These are all questions that authors need to ask themselves about what are they trying to do, as well as who you're really serving with your book. We could have a great idea, but if nobody wants to buy it, well, that's really not that good either.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launches that has worked well.
Well, more recently for my last book, The Quest for Purpose, is, I'm a podcast host of Secrets of Success. You have your podcast, is that I'm a podcast guest, and I'm always really sharing the contents of the book as part of getting to know the content of it, what we talked about, great value in the experience of the podcast, and then they can find out more about the book. The other side around marketing is, one-to-one is really somewhat painful, and of course we want to be an Amazon bestseller or whatever it is, but we talk about truckload sales. So I'll give an example. One of our clients, we have personality assessments. That's the basis of Deliberate Leadership, as well as Why Aren't You More Like Me? And so we had one of our clients, and they bought 500 books for every one of their managers. Well, I had to deal with one individual to sell the books at a discount to the supervisors of this company. And so that was a really great way to, I mean, think about how much work would take to sell 500 books to 500 individuals versus just one sale to an individual on behalf of a company. So, think larger book sales, group sales that you can get out there, and how to contact them and who would be interested where you'd be able to offer that. Another one, I know you wanted to have a little bit more, but the other one that's really kind of keen, and we've only done it a couple of times, and that is where you can get a third party to sponsor your book to go to another group. So let's say you have a book that appeals to dentists, let's say. Then could you have a provider of dental equipment sponsor your book, so every single dentist in their group, it's given to them as a freebie, but you got sponsored or paid for your book from the person or the company that is a provider of maybe some kind of medical equipment to dentists. And so there's all these creative ways to be able to reach your marketplace depending on who you've written for and what your content of your book is.
Yeah, and I love those strategies. I mean, you talk about getting the group sales for your books, but also getting third-party sponsors. I think that's one of the strategies that truly is untapped. Because if you can build one of those relationships, especially one of these companies, as you mentioned, to help dentists, or it's going to help these different people, and then having them give it as a freebie and then sponsoring the book, I mean, that's huge.
And everybody wins in that, Paul. It's interesting. A lot of us, maybe in authors, will have fear around this. Well, when I'm not going to talk to XYZ billion-dollar company, they don't want me. Oh, hang on. I mean, we do have to be salespeople and be influencers and say, why would it benefit them and how would it benefit them? And even now with today's short runs that you can do, Paul, is you can even customize the covers. You could even change the cover so that it could say sponsored by Paul, et cetera, XYZ. And so all of a sudden you can get this sort of personalized feel. The content of your book hasn't changed, but you have adjusted the cover to acknowledge the sponsorship to this group. And man, who doesn't love that?
Yeah, and you could even use it for, as you mentioned, for different sponsors. You could use different variations of your book for 3 or 4 sponsors targeting those specific markets.
Yeah, and depending on your printer, you could have, let's say, a bulk insides of your book printed, and then the covers are printed separately, and then you can organize and orchestrate that. As a publishing company, we have some connection with printers, and it's amazing what they can do today. And now with digital presses, it's a little bit more expensive per unit, but there's all kinds of flexibility that's out there. So just, again, use your creative mind. Think about how you can serve the clients, serve the sponsor, and work together to make everybody, or to have a situation where everybody can win.
Now, you mentioned this strategy. So have you utilized this for your books or for some of your clients' books?
Both.
Got it.
So, and again, sometimes it's just, can you get in front of it to be able to get the co-branding or the sponsorship on there? Sometimes we sort of missed an opportunity, and that was our fault. But yes, we've done it for both. And we do it, we're an assessment company, and so we're a digital press as well. So we, whenever we can, we co-brand, and it just really reflects this partnership mentality. There's too much out there where everybody's trying to be a competitor. And rather than that, I just say, how is it that we can create this sort of triple win between yourself, the author, the end reader or user, and the sponsor, and work together so that that's just kind of our mindset of how could we come to yes so that everybody gets served.
Excellent. Well, speaking of books, I'd like to ask, what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Oh man, you sent this as a pre-question to me, Paul,
Yep.
and it was nearly impossible to say, do I have a favorite book? Like I don't. Like it's books. It's just all kinds of books. So I'm going to give you a couple, so I'm breaking the rules as many authors do, right? So for myself, as an independent consultant and trainer and speaker, one of the best books that I've found for me was Dr. Alan Weiss's book, $1 Million Consulting. And so Alan's book was really about, and he also has around $1 million speaking, and then he's also put another book together around authorship. And one of the best things out of there was making sure that you honor your value. And, even as an author, a lot of times people don't write because you say, well, nobody really wants to hear from me. Hang on, no. Everybody has a story. You're going to uniquely tell it. You are valuable as a human being. And so people want to hear your story. And so out of that, his book was just how we value ourselves. Don't discount ourselves, and don't walk into a client and then just roll over as soon as you say, oh, by the way, my fees are $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 a day, and freak out by that. You stand in your space on that. So that was from that point of view, from a professional development point of view. And one of my very first books that got me into this industry, this is my 30th year, was Think and Grow Rich, and Napoleon Hill's. And I'm sure that you're familiar with that book, Paul.
Yep.
And so with that one was around, just again, stand in your own authenticity, be real, and that everybody has a chance to have some success in life as long as you're being authentic to who you are.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Well, I'm also a ordained pastor, Paul. So I actually went biblical on me. And so that was John 10:10 was, I've come that you may have life abundantly. And so, I mean, part of what words in authorship does is that I get emails periodically, and once in a while as an author, and I don't know if that's true for you, Paul, where say, is it really worth writing this? And not that long ago, I got an email from somebody who says, your book has changed my life. And so I think we want to hold in reverence just the honoring position of being an author and how you don't know who you're going to change, and that these words and your writing is needed out there in the marketplace. In spite of everybody else is out there, you will say it uniquely. You will say it in a way that will serve somebody differently than that no other author can speak to that reader as you can.
Absolutely. Well, Ken, I want to thank you for being a guest on this show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Well, best way, just go to my speaker site. It's kenkeis.com, spelled KENKEIS.com, and you'll be able to find out more about me. And if you just reach the contact information if you want to email or call us at the office, and we'll respond to anybody that inquires.
Well, Ken, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you, Paul. Much appreciated.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.